morning, Rotary Club of Centennial. If you could please stand. John McCarty, do you have our pledge today?
I'm ready. Oh, good. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Cheryl, do you have our inspiration?
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to read to you 12 things to always remember. The past cannot be changed. Opinions don't define your reality. Everyone's journey is different. Judgments are not about you. Overthinking will lead to sadness. Happiness is found from within. Your thoughts affect your mood. Smiles are contagious. Kindness is free. It's okay to let go and move on. What goes around comes around, and things always get better.
Thank you, Cheryl. Please take your seats. Kent, you have our Rotary Minute.
I would have fitted there perfect. Never passed straight.
I have two relatively quick things. Most of them are up to bringing people up to dates on things. I've had a couple of inquiries about this year's Rotary leadership camps, and the registration for those will begin on February 15th. And I checked the website last night, and that date is still good. Now, if you were just dying to be a senior counselor at one of the leadership camps, I'm afraid that boat has sailed. That was your application was due by the 31st of December. So, but the kids can start applying on the 15th. The students that are interested in going to this year's leadership camps. The other thing is those of you that have been in this club for a while remember our probably one of the first fundraisers we ever did was purchasing King Soopers gift cards. And we held that until, as a fundraiser until last year, because Kroger decided to stop that program. At that time, I had made several announcements about the fact that that program was ending and that they were going to a new one, which was tying your King Soopers card to a particular nonprofit organization. And I encouraged you to sign up for our organization, the Centennial Rotary Foundation. I can tell you we have 12 families that are participating in that program. I'd love to see that number higher, particularly in light of what I'm about to tell you. In the third quarter of last year, we earned $184.83 in donations. And I gave that check to Barb last week. This quarter, the most recent, last quarter, same number of households participating, so we hadn't had any increase, but we earned $224.01. So to give you some perspective on where we were with the prior program, we turned $250 every time we sold $5,000 of gift cards. We turned those about 5 times a year. So we're running a little behind what we used to do, but I think that could be helped by some of you signing up your King Soopers card on their website, on King Soopers' website, and listing the Centennial Rotary Foundation as your nonprofit organization that you wish to participate with. They will ask you for a foundation number, if you're all ready. I'm saying this out loud, so I hope somebody will write it down, and then I'll email it out too. But it's BP 238. So again, I'd like to see that. We only had about 8 to 10 people participating in the program by the time it stopped in the gift cards program. So I think if we have a few more people, we can really get these donations up from King Soopers program. So that's where we're at in that.
Great, thank you,
Kent,
Kent.
one thing on that. I signed up for it. I went back a while later and checked, and it had gotten changed to some other organization. I have no idea. So it's not a bad idea. If you do sign up, every now and then go in and make sure that you're still signed up.
Ooh.
You can find it on your app. You have King Super's app. So you can see who you're signed up with.
Eric, you have our business minute? Yes.
Good morning. Everybody, those who know me know I work for Sierra Nevada Corporation, not the beer company. And our division here at Centennial puts between $500 million and $1 billion of revenue into the Centennial and communities surrounding the Centennial Airport. But one thing that you probably didn't think of is in light of the attacks lately in Iraq and in Kenya, there's a little known fact that Sierra Nevada Corporation also is a force provider for the United States government in the Middle East and in Africa. In light of the attacks and the loss of life in Kenya and in Iraq, I just wanted to let you know to keep the Sierra Nevada Corporation guys and gals in your prayers as well, because they're fighting right alongside the warfighter in these places. And the places that I actually had in my slideshow, we do have people in East and West Africa in harm's way, as well as Afghanistan and Lebanon. And once again, if you keep them in your thoughts and prayers along with our conventional forces. Thank you.
All right. So I just want to thank everyone that makes this meeting possible. Of course, everyone, our AV team and our greeters, people that come in to set up and take down. So I want to thank Phil. I know that you came in to set up. I know somebody was scheduled to take down, but I couldn't remember who it was. Thank you, Doug. Tom, thank you for your greeting. Cheryl, the inspiration. John, for your pledge. And thank you, everyone. Ann West, you're doing the Happy Bucks, and Barb for Blue Marble, Kent, and Eric. Takes a team to put this together, so I thank every single one of you. We have a visiting Rotarian, Tracy Impolite. I was close. Originally from, I forgot what club.
North by Northeast in Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas. Okay. So, and she lives here now. She's come quite often. So, I know that she's been traveling and she's been sick. So, welcome her back. We also have another guest.
Tracy has pitched in for Meals on Wheels, and she's 9 November. That speaks to you guys.
We have another guest as well, Grant Whiteside. Do we have someone to introduce him, or do you want to say anything, what you do, who invited you, all of that good stuff, put you on the spot? Your 30-second pitch?
1 Adam 12. Okay. Yeah, hi, my name's Grant. I guess I've been in Colorado for about 15 years now. My wife and I have 5 children. Plus we're involved actually in the Denver Kids program, so we have another young man that we've worked with for about 15 years. My last child is now a sophomore in college, so all of a sudden I'm an empty nester. And although it doesn't feel that empty, there's still a big sucking sound coming out of it, it seems. But yeah, so I've got 5 kids, they're out of the house, and so I find myself, I still work, I have a real estate business, but I find myself with a little more time, and I'm just trying to kind of learn what you do, so I thank you all for letting me come here and learn, and I'm just trying to figure out how maybe I can sort of apply my free time a little more effectively, so thank you.
Great. Well, welcome, Grant. So we have a few birthdays. Oh, Tim?
Who is the card for?
Ken Hope.
Thank you.
Yes, there's a card going around for Ken Hope. He had knee surgery, so again, yesterday. So he was also sick on Saturday, so thankfully he apparently got over that in order to have a surgery. But so just sign that when that comes your way. We have a few birthdays. We have Karen Fleck.
I was trying to shut him up.
She doesn't look so enthusiastic. Her birthday's on the 20th, so happy birthday to Karen. We also have Randy Pye's wife, Susan, on the 18th.
Got the dinner reservations, we're ready to go.
All right. See? See? That's a man who's been married for a while. So I don't have in my records that we have any wedding anniversaries. Am I wrong? Somebody remember theirs? Okay. So we're going to go ahead and start with something a little unusual. John? So we're hoping that this is going to work. All right. So I know some of you want to know what it's like being a Rotary president. And to warn the people coming up, and just to kind of give you a little idea. Maybe. And that's exactly how it is.
Fate whispers to the warrior, a storm is coming. And the warrior whispers back, I am the storm.
That's me. That's right. I am the storm. That's John. Now, if you want to know what happens at President-elect training, this is just a little bit.
Taking that briefcase.
Give me the funding request, is what he really said. That was me in the Embassy Suites event coordinator.
You have to! There's no time! Now! Please! They're coming!
When they're ready.
Then get ready.
Always balancing.
This is the end, Mr. Hunt.
Right? Really, this is just the first 6 months. Remember.
Ah! Look out!
Well, I know you kind of get the point. So being Rotary president is not easy. It may not be quite as adventurous as this, but it certainly has its days. And as many of you know, lately, I'm going to go ahead and cut this one off. Maybe. Yeah. Over the last several months, we have been working on figuring out membership dues. I've talked with probably 80% of you about ideas. People went and did things, research, recognizance, everything, brought it back to me, and I said, I don't like those numbers. So what we had to do was something that had been tried before, it hadn't worked. So thankfully, for whatever reasons, the planets were in alignment, and we were able to talk to Embassy Suites a little bit. But I first want to kind of go over with you our current structure, kind of what we pay, where it goes, and then what our actual costs are. So some of you have seen this before, but a lot of you may not have. And can you see over there? Yeah, okay. So as you know, we have $35 a quarter for our Rotary International and our district dues. Then we have $25 that goes to the foundation. That's our donation each quarter. And then $195 a quarter goes to the Rotary Club of Centennial. So our total is $255 per quarter, right? Now, our costs actually are a little different than that. So breakfast is $20 per person, right? Now, we meet approximately 48 weeks a year. That's $240 per quarter if you attend every meeting. Granted, most people don't attend every meeting. However, should you be as awesome as Mary Alice and Charlie Jackson, or the president, I did miss one so far, but you know, it happens. So that's just breakfast. That doesn't cover our marketing costs or supplies, anything like that. The non-breakfast costs averaged anywhere between $5,000 to $7,000 per year over the last 3 years. So I just averaged that as $6,000. So that's about $30 per person per quarter. Well, if you're coming 100% of the time, our out-of-pocket is $330. 75% of the time is $270 per quarter. So obviously this $255 is not going to work, right? This is why our reserve is going down and we're trying to figure out what's going on. Do we get a new venue? Do we do this? What do we do, right? So now let's say we use this structure for 2020. Well, our meals have gone up, right? We all know food has grown as far, well, of course food grows. But as far as, you know, the cost of food has risen, I know I've noticed in my grocery bill. So Embassy Suites is like, well, $22 per person, right? That's still less than what the hotel guests pay. So if we did that, plus that $30 club dues to cover our costs, 100% attendance, $354 per quarter.
I think everybody needs to know the Embassy Suites does not charge us for this room.
Right, it's just breakfast. Yeah, right. So, but if you come 75% of the time, it's $288 per quarter. So as you can see, there's a bit of a mismatch of what our dues and what our costs are. However, I don't want to be the president to raise dues. I don't know about anyone else. I mean, Diana can next year, that's fine, that's her deal, right? But, you know, thankfully I've had so many people who have done research about different venues and different ways of going about things that with all of their help and coming to the Embassy Suites, we've been able to renegotiate our contract. Okay, new dues structure. One, we're gonna remove breakfast as something that's required in our dues and utilize a ticket pay-as-you-go system. We're still going to be charged a kind of a nominal coffee service / venue charge. It's not necessarily a venue charge, they're gonna call it coffee service because it's this coffee over here. So if you come and you don't have breakfast, but you have coffee, obviously you still need to pay for that. So that's something that's in our dues, is that little nominal fee, okay? And this structure, because we have several people that don't eat breakfast, well, it's definitely more equitable for them because here they are paying for breakfast, they're not eating, you know, it's a little bit more fair to everyone. It also creates a lower point for members to come in, right? So according to this, we've got $35 for our RI and district dues, $60 for our quote venue charge or coffee service for the quarter, $25 for RI Foundation donation, and $50 for club dues, totaling $170 per quarter, okay? Now because breakfast is pay as you go, and you're already paying for coffee, when you come in, it's going to be $18 per person. So when you come in, you pay $18, cash, check, or charge, no extra fee if it's a charge. This will not be billable to your account, okay? The reason why we're doing that is because in the past, we've had people come have breakfast, don't pay their dues. Come have breakfast, don't pay their dues. And so we are automatically out that money because that money is going out to the embassy suites, right? This will prevent breakfast for the club being on the hook for breakfast for anyone that hasn't paid dues. Now, I get questions. Okay, well, what if instead of 36 people have breakfast, which is what is kind of average now, only 15 have breakfast? What's Embassy Suites going to do? Well, I talked to them about that. They're willing to risk it. And the reason is one, because of that little nominal charge that we're going to be giving every week, but also because they recognize that a lower due structure is going to help us bring in members, right? Now, our expectation is for you not to come in, have coffee, and leave. If you can afford it, you have the ability, and you normally eat breakfast, right? Come in, pay the $18, and go. And I have to say, it's a lot easier to chew, with $18 a week than if you see a bill for $350. At least it is for me, because then I can make a choice. Okay, $18, great, this is for Rotary, it shows my goodwill for Embassy Suites, etc. It's really supportive. This way you know exactly where your money is going, and you have that decision and power in your own hand. Now, there may be some other concerns like, well, how do we do this? What does this mean? All this stuff. So kind of what's next with this. So the board has already approved this. Now, we do want, of course, to answer your questions with concerns and thoughts, etc. And we want to make sure that you are okay with this structure. Granted, like I said, the board has already approved it, but we didn't feel it was right to just force lower dues on you. I know I was a little shocked on that one. I was like, are you sure? Yeah, we really need them to say that they want lower dues. And I said, okay, so kind of, this is expectations with breakfast. Sorry, that's really small. Let me just go through this. So Embassy Suites is taking a risk of their income to go down. Granted, if they don't have people in these rooms, they're still getting income from any breakfast that we have, right? But we still want to build that goodwill and have that, right? So be mindful of that relationship. If you normally eat breakfast, like I've said. I am still in the process of finalizing our contract. We are looking to do this for 6 months. Kind of reevaluate to make sure it's still appropriate for everyone and it's working. So like I said, buy breakfast, right? So what's next? First, like I was saying, the board has voted and approved. And so I want to open this up to questions in just a few minutes, and then we'll kind of do a hand vote. I am waiting that final contract. I should have that today, just implementing the cost of the meal at $22 per person, and then a weekly fee of coffee service charge of $180, which is approximately $5 per person per week. Next, how do we implement this? It's a ticket system, so we're going to need to organize a little bit. We're pretty good at that, and I know we have some people that are really good at process. I know, like Tom Gross, the way you did things. I've heard you're awesome, the people who do the Christmas trees. So we're going to need your help as far as figuring out how to process this. It'll be a ticket system. As you come, you purchase. You can purchase one ticket, or you can pay in advance 5, 10, 2, however many you want. And you have one ticket that will go up to where Randy is, the buffet. You put your ticket in there. So we'll have one side and they'll have one side. And then we get charged at the end of the day of how many tickets are in there. But we have ours just in case there's any kind of discrepancy. Okay. And this is a new morning position. I'm calling it energy facilitator. because of all the calories we eat, right? Come on, guys. Expected implementation would be February 11th. So I'd like to open the floor for questions. I was like, oh, Cheryl.
How are we going to handle our guests and especially around high school and those?
Okay, so a lot of certain programs like our Student of the Month, they are under the foundation, so their meals are being paid by the foundation. They will receive a ticket, and on the back of the ticket that we have, it'll be foundation, could be, student exchange or whatever that is, and so that would be billed to the foundation. Our guests, very similarly, because we normally pay for our guests' breakfast and our speakers' breakfast, they will get a ticket. The other side would be speaker, or it'll be guest, Rotary guest, and bill to club or whatnot. And those have been kind of built into the fee structure, so that way it comes out of the club dues unless it's a specific program. So we have put in a few slots for guests and speakers. So, Doug?
In a worst case scenario, though we have maybe only 10 or 11 people buying breakfast every week, what are we going to lose our room? Is there like a floor that the Embassy Suites has to have?
So there is no minimum, right? So this is why we are looking to, we're encouraging you. I'm not saying you have to. Obviously, it's dependent on your financial situation and whether you eat breakfast or not. As I said before, I did talk with the Embassy Suites. It's something I was concerned about because I know I eat breakfast because I pay for it, right? But if I don't have to pay for it, will I eat every week? I don't know, right? My thought process is probably, but there may be times I'm not feeling well or, just the normal stuff where you don't get here in time and you just want to sit and be in the meeting. So that's one reason why I've asked for a 6-month contract as a trial to see, okay, is this going to work? So, we may have to revisit this in 6 months, but I'm hoping that we won't. We're going to get a lot of members who really want to pay $18, for food. But again, Doug, you have to understand that right now, they don't have anyone in these rooms. That's why we're in the room, right? So any money that they are making is money that they wouldn't normally make. So they're still making money. It just may not be as much as they originally wanted. Okay. John?
Samantha, did anybody look at comparing our costs to other breakfast clubs around up and down the Front Range?
Yes, we did a lot of comparison, not only with different clubs, but also just utilizing different venues, different breakfasts, all of that stuff. Even before, we were one of the lowest when it comes to membership dues. Okay. Now we're going to be even lower for an entry point. Andres?
Samantha, first of all, congratulations to you and the board for thinking outside of the box. It's really good to be able to see that we're not. I'm more interested in the logistics, how it's going to work, because I can imagine a line of 60 people waiting to get into the room to get tickets. So I don't know if you have that already figured out. But
so I need help with that. That's one of the things. This is a call to action. Help me, please. One idea I have is where you can possibly purchase your tickets online before coming. An option. I haven't discussed that with the powers that be, but that's kind of one of my thought process. And pay advance. Tim?
That's all I was going to say. You can buy tickets in advance.
Yeah.
So if you want to buy 10 tickets, buy 10 tickets, and then.
Right. Cheryl?
Samantha, you've
then
done
you have to buy at the door. Sorry.
You've done an excellent job with this presentation and with the board.
and I appreciate that. Let me share with you with my travels to other Rotary clubs. And when I went to New York City, it was $75 at the door, whether you ate or not. And that was a lunch. And then when I went to Beirut, Lebanon, it was $20 at the door. And even I, as a guest, they called and asked ahead of time, will you have your $20? So,
Trip, that's now your job.
Membership is the biggest obstacle to membership is the dues. Wherever they rank in the world of dues, they are that's a pill. Seems to be regularly a big pill to swallow.
Right.
And it's also come up for membership retention that it's just not affordable. I think many of us agree it's a great value, and we hate to see the breakfast go. So it seems like win-win on every level I can see.
When I contemplated joining, $1,000 sounded like an awful lot to me. But my husband says you need the socialization because I worked.
He said, "Get out of the house, Ann."
Yeah,
let me just translate.
Because I worked from home.
John.
I'm just wondering whether the club is taking an appropriate amount, because I'm looking at this, and the 100% attendance person is going to be paying $276 a quarter just to the embassy suites, between the $5 weekly plus the $216 for breakfast. And for the 75% person, we're at $222 to the embassy suites, $110 left just for the club. So are we really...
So the club, we decided $50 per member for the club per quarter. That ends up being about $10,000 for the year. Our costs are generally $5,000 to $7,000. That's at a membership of 50 people. So it goes above our costs. And then that gives us some room to work with in case we want to send more people to district conference, leadership, have a reduced holiday party meal, stuff like that. So, yeah. Mark?
I think, having been membership chair before, there were several people who didn't join because of the cost, and I think this is really going to change things for us. I really think we're going to see, in the next year or so, a jump in membership.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Marky Mark.
I am not a breakfast person, and maybe it would be, if you wanted to, a show of hands as to how many people are like me. I need a cup of coffee, and that's about it. Breakfast, I'll grab a little this or that, the other thing. So I don't know whether you want to ask for a show of hands as to who is versus who is not a breakfast person.
I mean, we can. Doesn't really matter. It's kind of a personal preference.
Well, it's going to matter as to the whole financial picture, so it's not a big surprise.
Yeah, that's why we're trying it for 6 months, because it's going to differ each week.
Got it.
We would typically pay for every head in this room. We'd pay Embassy Suites for every single head in this room, whether you're drinking coffee or the guests, or you're a guest of a guest, or the president. The same fee for every head in this room. Now we get to pay. That doesn't come into play. $60 for the coffee, help yourself, and then $18 for your ticket. Pretty great.
Got it. You might want to turn around and just suggest to people that if they're not a breakfast person like myself, that you'll gladly accept the differential in money on a check to the foundation.
Exactly. My name is spelled OSEI. Now, we are running late, so because I want to make sure everyone's questions are answered, we're going to go ahead and forego Happy Bucks, and we're going to go through this, finish our business, and then get to our speaker, because I also want to appreciate his time here. Phil.
Just logistically, I like the idea of a book of tickets that we could purchase in advance. It just makes sense to me that I can buy a book of 10, and then I could use them as I needed to, and then if I needed more, sort of like the King Soopers cards.
Right.
Type of thing.
Okay. Charlie?
Establish 2 breakfasts to choose from. The one that we have now, or a coffee and donut.
Unfortunately, that takes a lot more time for the Embassy Suites and would cost probably just as much because of their actual additional setup fee. So it's something that I looked at.
You did try that.
Yeah, I did. Dana?
Samantha, we are a huge IOU club. What happens if we buy our book of tickets and we show up one morning, we are really hungry, but we don't have our book of tickets?
You're going to have to IOU to somebody else.
So that's a no. I take that as
that's a no. You're going to have to borrow a ticket from your neighbor.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So
I think the answer is we are adults, and this is like a consequence of not planning.
I was asking for
Tim next to you, I know.
Just so everybody's aware. Look, we are a Rotary Club, and this is a partnership with the Embassy Suites, who we love the venue, we love the convenience, and we also have the 4-way test. So just think about that when you decide whether you want to buy breakfast or not.
Right. So one more, and then we're going to go ahead and just move to vote, because I'm going to have somebody move.
First of all, I don't think people recognize just how much research went into this and how much time and effort went into this, looking at other venues, looking at a different type of breakfast, taking away breakfast altogether. This is the most creative one that we could come up with, and actually reduce your fee, your dues, and get potentially new members where we can relook at dues at some point in the future and maybe get a little bit more money for the club that way. But I think the board has done an amazing job, as well as a number of people here in the club, in helping this research. And so I think you've come up with the best option potentially possible, other than taking away the room altogether, going somewhere else, not having a breakfast. And you all really don't want that. Believe me, we heard that. So anyway, I think it's a great job.
Great. Thank you, Randy. So do I have a motion?
I move to vote.
Do I have a second? Of adopting this due structure for the next 6 months. Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? You can see me after. If you do have questions, thank you. Thank you. Please note, if you are interested in helping me as far as the organization of this and the implementation, please come see me, because I need help. I can't do that alone. So let's go ahead and move forward into some other business. This I'm done with, John. Thank you, John. And I have Meals on Wheels.
I asked for a few minutes because of Meals on Wheels, but I also asked because I do the bulletin every week, and frequently it is a joy, but occasionally it's like pulling teeth. And I need your help, because this page, the one that's inside, what I call the feature page, needs to hear from you. Occasionally, like last week, you see what I've been doing. I was up snowshoeing, but I really don't think that that's what you want to see. So if you are doing something that, I like pictures, as you notice, I don't do a lot of writing, that it has a picture. For example, the Huff couple over there are doing a fundraising. You want to include a picture? Here it is. If you have kids doing something, well, we could put it in here. So just send it to me, and that way I will have less work, and we could see something more of you guys. Meals on Wheels, it's time for me to send out invites. Thank you so much for the people who are part of my team. They pitch in tirelessly. But we also could use some new people. Tracy's been, as I said, been pitching in with John 2-3 times now. Yep. So watch for my team. You're going to get an invite this week. And we also add a new place. I'm going to do it with Doug this weekend. I'm eager to see how that panned out. That's basically it. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Ann. We have Mary Alice, do you have any more information on Flower Power yet? No? Okay. We'll skip to the next one. I have information here. Deb, do you have any more information on the Avalanche fundraiser stuff?
Funny, I just grabbed the microphone for that. I will not be here next week, but Kelly will be. What?
Smack him.
He's applauding that I won't be here. Maybe I'll just come just to harass you. Anyway, will be here to explain the dates, just a reminder to people, and how the fundraising part of it can work. I think it's better if it comes from him, and then if you have additional questions, he'll be here. He's bringing cards, and I hope that we can really support this because the Avalanche are very, very much behind us joining them and promoting the Centennial Rotary.
Great. Thank you, Deb. So let me get through my list and then I'll call people. Randy, Ernest, we have a social on the 18th, don't we?
We do. And I have a sign-up sheet. The reason I'm asking for a sign-up sheet, everything is just on your own when you get there. Our social is this Saturday, 4:30 to 6, or whenever you feel like leaving, at 1 Up Happy Hour, which is just on Clinton by Target. If you haven't had a chance to, if you are as tired as I am of getting beat by my kids and all their video games, this is the chance to turn the tables on them because no one beats me in Super Mario Brothers. There is a pinball, yes. You are now the queen organizer of the Pinball Championship. Congratulations. They do have like 20 pinball games. Anyway, this is just I get real. It's just a happy hour, super informal. I'm asking for a sign up. Please get this back to me if you can, because I'll call and see if they'll give us any sort of deals or any happy hour specials. The more people we have, the easier that will be. But again, this is just purely social hour. You're allowed to have kids there until 7 o'clock, and then it turns into just a bar. So this is family friendly, 4:30 to 6 this Saturday. I'm going to send this around so I don't forget.
Randy.
And then, sorry, I'm not done. Oh, yeah, it'll come your way, Tim. Thank you. And then just for your calendars, February 29th will be the annual, missed a couple of years, annual bowling championship. John Barry has promised to bring the Centennial Rotary Championship Cup.
Ooh.
That's probably more reliable. Probably more reliable anyway. That's all I got. Thank you.
Tom Gross, you have information about our offsite meeting?
Yes, and also the event.
Yes.
So a week from tomorrow is the Books and Jackets event at Crawford Elementary School. So a number of you have signed up. You do not have to dress up to sign up. There are people who are going to dress up and read to the kids, and that's great. But everyone is welcomed roughly from 4 to 6 in the afternoon on the 22nd, next Wednesday. So we have filled 74 bags of coats and boots for 74 students and purchased about 350 books. And it's going to be really should be an awesome event. And so that's coming up next Wednesday. We're going to also have a carpool available from this lot up there. So for anyone that's not comfortable driving up to Aurora or driving back at night or whatever, we'll be doing that. So next week we'll go over that. But please, if you're interested, come out and show these kids that the Centennial Rotary Club cares about them. And then secondly, I mentioned this last December before the break, February 4th will be an off-site meeting at the Cherry Creek Innovations campus. I don't know if anyone's been there. It is amazing. You need to see this place. It's gotten accolades as a national example of education for the future. They have aviation. They have auto mechanics, all kinds of things for kids that aren't on a track to go to college. But the school is spectacular. They have a plane in there. They have all kinds of things going on in there. And the superintendent, Scott Siegfried, is on schedule to speak to us. So this would be a great opportunity. They would love to have as many people as possible, and they're providing breakfast. The kids that are studying that will be providing breakfast to us. So you more than welcome. Please invite guests, neighbors, friends, anyone that cares about the Cherry Creek School District and wants to see the cutting edge. You're more than welcome to invite somebody or one or more people.
Are you going to have a sign up so you know who's
so
coming?
next week I'll have a sign up. The school is asking for about 2 weeks' notice on an approximate number of people that are going to be attending. So please invite people, and next week be able to let me know roughly how many people we can anticipate at this event. But it should be great. That's on the 4th of February. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Tom. Karen Fleck, information about our food drives.
Yeah, we have established the dates for the coming year for our food drives out at King Soopers on Parker and Arapahoe. So the first one is coming up March 7th. John put that out on the calendar, so you can go out now and sign up for that one. But put these dates on your calendar as well, because he doesn't have these on the calendar that I'm aware of. June 6th, October 17th, and December 5th. So those are the 4 dates for our food drives, and good way for new members to volunteer and get in the organization.
Great, thank you, Karen. And then the last one on my list is Diana with State of Our City.
Yep. Good morning, fellow Rotarians. I would like to ask my partner in this adventure, Catherine Henshin-Hoff, to come and join me. So I made some notes, and to keep it short and sweet, I'm going to read from my notes. So in exactly 3 months, we will be hosting our 16th annual signature fundraising event. That's the State of Our City. One of the goals that we had with this event this year was to try to reimagine, I'm stealing your word, I know that's your favorite word, we were trying to reimagine this event since we will have been in the same location for 16 years. So, first of all, I want to thank the board for approving the $5,000 funding request for the newly created Centennial Citizens' Choice Award. We're hoping that that's one way that we will get a little bit more engagement in terms of getting new sponsors involved in the event. We also were looking at some new sponsorship levels, some creative sponsorship levels. For example, we can do a menu sponsor. Who out there would like to have their name on our menu at the event? I have a taker. You've seen it.
Sold.
Okay. Sold.
$6,000.
Oh. That's what happens when you...
Well, it's printing, too.
We will be expanding the committee to include 3 members. Oh, we've expanded already. We have 3 members from the Satellite Club. We have Andrea Tagto, Jack Cregan, and Sarah Nielsen, who will be exploring how we go into this. We will be recruiting additional members as it gets closer to that event. Our first wave of sponsors are going out this week. And once we find out what the commitment looks like from there, we'll be coming back to the club and asking for some suggestions in terms of other potential sponsors that we can put out there. We're also planning a soft ask at the event. We will have a donation envelope, which will be another sponsorship opportunity. Trip, do I hear?
You know it. That's another $6,000.
And this will basically be a soft ask where we're asking people to make a donation to continue the funding of this newly created event that we have. Catherine, did I miss anything?
No, you're good.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you for coming up here. Thank you.
Right, so that's all on my list. Is there any other business? Cheryl.
Thank you. Just wanted to let you know that John Peterson will not be our speaker next week because he won't be here, so we're going to schedule him in March. But our speaker that we're going to have next week is a former NFL football player, and he's going to be coming to talk about concussions, youth concussions from football games.
But who is it?
Mike Ringel. Ringel.
Okay. Thank you, Cheryl. Roxy?
As you know, my job in this club is youth exchange mainly, and we are having a student next fall. We have two families. Randy Ernest and his wife have graciously volunteered. They will be a family number 2 or 3. Luckily, it was Eric's vote that got them into it. I'm so grateful for Eric. And then also one of our previous host families, the Fellows family, will be our first host family. So more than likely, we will have a boy. So we'll have, plenty of someone to eat. We will not eat them. They will be doing a lot of eating. And my appeal here is if in our club or if you know anyone who is in the Cherry Creek School District, we need another host family. We need one more. We usually have 3. And it's about a 3.5 month commitment. And they do not have to have a child in Cherry Creek High School. It can be an empty nester.
Okay.
So, or there you go, or young children. But anyway, let me know if you're interested in hosting. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Roxy. So I think we should, Scott, one more.
This will be very quick. I sent out an email about Top Golf. I heard back from a number of you. If you haven't responded but you're interested, let me know by today or tomorrow so I can find out who's all interested, what the cost would be, stuff like that. Thank you.
Great.
Since there's no happy bucks, I was going to do a sad buck for the Vikings, a happy one for Tim, good win, and good luck to you. No Vikings jacket for all of you.
All right.
It's you, the real purple and gold that actually can win a championship.
Wow. All right, so let's go ahead and move on.
Just quickly add something to
Sure.
Scott's comment.
I had a feeling this was coming. You know, I actually was going to make this same joke, so I'm glad you did it for me, John. Thank you. I appreciate the love.
All right. Well, in the interest of our speakers' time, do we have any travel gifts? No, okay. So since we're foregoing Happy Bucks, we have an introduction to our speaker. Who's interested? Tom, go ahead and do that for us.
Okay, so we are privileged to have a wonderful speaker here today. Thank you, Stuart, for your patience as we work through our meeting. Stuart Vanderwilt from the Colorado Public Radio, CEO of Colorado Public Radio. And just to give you a little bit of his background, he's been there since 2018. And prior to that, he led public radio organizations over 3 decades. He was director and general manager of Austin's several radio stations there, 18 years, and worked to transform the organization into one of the highest rated public radio stations in a market of its size. He also spent 15 years at Indiana Public Radio, serving in various positions. So here at Colorado Public Radio, he works closely with the board of directors, senior staff, leadership team to fulfill the organization's mission and vision. So amazing resume, and it's awesome that you're here in Colorado and here with us. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm going to speak from up here. Is the microphone working for all y'all? Good, good. Well, my job is not nearly as exciting as Samantha's, as demonstrated by the video this morning. I also want to say, as you all know, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And now that I know that you already paid for it, I really regret not having breakfast this morning. But I'm glad you worked all that out. Yes, thank you. Well, thank you so much for what you do in our community, the Coats and Boots for Kids program, the Christmas Tree program, your support of education through the Student of the Month and student exchange programs. As a nonprofit, CPR certainly applauds your public service as well. So thank you. As you said, my wife Stephanie and I moved here from Austin, Texas, just 18 months ago. It was a bit of a homecoming for me in a way. I grew up just north of here, outside of Calgary, Alberta. But I did spend 2 high school summers working construction in Denver, and at the conclusion of one of those summers, I stayed here and attended boarding school outside of Loveland. And I'll say that I've been working my way back ever since. We spent every weekend skiing at Mary Jane, when I was in boarding school, and I skied 10 of the first 12 months I was here when we moved back. So. As you mentioned, my career began in Muncie, Indiana, which at the time was the home of Ball Corporation, now headquartered in Broomfield, one of the largest corporations in Colorado. In Muncie, I was hired at the radio station at Ball State University by the same person who fired David Letterman. So we know he made at least one good choice. Reportedly, he fired David Letterman for announcing Claude Debussy's Claire de Lune as being performed by Claire and the Looney Sisters. I don't know that that's a firing offense, but I'm sure there was other things as well. So I'm going to talk this morning about the state of journalism, but first a little background CPR. We're headquartered here in Centennial, just off of Dry Creek Road. We operate across the state with 37 stations between news, classical, and independent music. In addition to Centennial, we have personnel on the Western Slope based in Grand Junction, in Colorado Springs, and in Washington, D.C. And we've recently moved our entire newsroom from Centennial to downtown Denver to be near the capital. The headquarters remains here in Centennial. In all, we have 160 employees, $25 million annual budget that's funded by listeners, sponsors, and a congressionally appropriated federal grant of about $1 million from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. I'm going to turn my comments towards the state and importance of the press and CPR's growing role. Thomas Jefferson wrote, "Our liberty cannot be guarded but by the freedom of the press." And today, journalism is under assault. Its role in a civil and democratic society seems to be threatened daily, and the underlying business model is being disrupted. The challenges facing journalism aren't a recent phenomenon, but certainly it's at a heightened state. In our time, it's gone from a benign melancholy on behalf of the leader of the free world to the declaration of the free press as being the enemy of the people. This isn't altogether new. President Johnson complained that if he levitated and walked on water across the Potomac, the press headline would be, "Johnson can't swim." In Nixon's administration, we had the nattering nabobs of negativity and, of course, the enemies list. And the Obama administration used the 1917 Espionage Act to prosecute more people for leaking sensitive information to journalists and the public than all previous administrations combined. And today, I have serious concerns that when news and other platforms of power are used to promote hate and division, that persons with hate in their heart are affirmed, emboldened, and activated. This is a time when the need for trusted, ubiquitous sources of news and information is most needed, and many of our local institutions are in deep decline. I'm going to ask you to visualize the institutions of credible, accessible, and sustainable journalism as a physical container. We'll call it a barrel, a big barrel. And because we're in Denver, let's make it a beer brewing-sized barrel. This journalism barrel is made up of those trusted, stalwart institutions that you recognize. Think Walter Cronkite's CBS, the Rocky Mountain News, and the Denver Post when cities of just a few 100,000 across the country had 2 daily newspapers. Think of Time Magazine, the Wall Street Journal, and of course NPR and PBS, just to name a few. And the contents of that barrel is the high quality and trusted news created, the number of journalists deployed, the bureaus around the world, the country and the state, like when the New York Times had a Rocky Mountain bureau, and when Colorado news organizations had half a dozen journalists in Washington looking out for the interests of our citizens in this state. That big barrel of trusted journalistic organizations, reporters, bureaus, and accountability, especially in local communities, is gone. Today, it's more like a bucket, or maybe a child's pail with a hole in the bottom and it's leaking. From 2008 to 2018, nearly 50% of newspaper journalism jobs were lost. 1,800 newspapers across the country closed. The loss of local news and news sources has an identified deleterious impact on communities. Without a watchdog on power and local reporting on the experiences of communities, corruption thrives, health outcomes decline, polarization increases. And if the container of news you trust in Colorado is a leaking pail, CPR is trying to fill it, and fill it as fast as we can. There's some promising signs for our community. We wake up each day with the knowledge that more people in Denver are tuning in for the news on public radio, on CPR and KUNC to the north, than any other local news source. That in Denver, at least, people prefer facts over conjecture, context over opinion, inquiry and civility over divisiveness, and false equivalencies. But the greatest long-term threat to journalism is a sustainable business model. We need a free press, and at the same time, content wants to be free. When products and platforms become services, consumer use and value of the product diminishes and sometimes completely disappears. Think physical maps, photographic film, encyclopedias, classified ads, all of which have been virtually replaced by services universally found on your phone. For CPR, the survival of journalism is more than a business imperative. It is our mission. At CPR, we recognize that our product is not radio. It's information and trust. Trust that comes from transparency, a commitment to accuracy, and treating our audiences as contributors and partners rather than consumers. Trust that comes from providing essential news, driven by facts, and delivered with civility and empathy. And we have two competitive advantages that are also inherent in our mission and our organizational DNA. One, we produce and deliver news and experiences that can only be done from where we are, in Denver and across Colorado. And two, we are unencumbered from delivering a profit margin to out-of-state investors for whom an informed local public is not their priority. We are not unencumbered by revenue, though. We seek revenue vigorously for one purpose: to reinvest in our public service. In addition to our operating support, this past year we've raised over $3 million to invest directly in local journalism. And here's how we are using it to fill that news bucket. We've launched Colorado's largest investigative reporting unit. We've established bureaus on the Western Slope in southern Colorado and Washington, D.C., where CPR has the only Colorado-based reporter covering the actions of our elected representatives and the government agencies making decisions impacting our state. We've launched a climate solutions reporting team, reporting on the breakthrough research, business innovations, and policies in Colorado that may help save our planet. We've broadcast live every hour of the public impeachment inquiry, and we'll do so with the upcoming Senate trial, making it accessible in its unedited form to all within reach of our radio signals. So I'll be happy to answer any questions, hear any comments you have about any element of CPR, NPR, public media. But first I want to share a data point about the importance of art in our lives, especially during turbulent times. At the end of 2018, we analyzed the day-by-day audience of our radio stations, looking for internal and external driven listening trends like holidays, our fundraising drives, and particularly news events. How did that impact listening to CPR? We weren't surprised to learn that the two highest days of listening to our news stations for 2018 were the day of the midterm election and the day we broadcast the Dr. Ford and Justice Kavanaugh testimony. What we didn't expect is what happened on our classical station. On the day of the Ford-Kavanaugh hearing, we had more listeners to classical than to any other day in the year by a lot. More than 3 times the average. So we wonder, was it denial? Was it a flight from the ugliness of our civic discourse to the beauty and calm of music? Whatever the reason, And as important as the freedom of the press is to our liberty, we also need art to feed our souls and soothe our sanity. Thank you for listening. I'll be happy to take any questions you have. Any questions, thoughts? Yeah, in the back here.
So I'm a loyal listener of
Thank you.
both CPR and I listen to the Radio Lab podcast.
Yeah, right.
Here. Anyway, there was a recent story about all this sort of artificial intelligence and the ability to essentially take video of people and re-engineer it so that you can say what they say and make their face look like it's saying what they're saying. I know this is a little beyond CPR, but just as a journalist, you know, with the prior election engineering and all that sort of stuff, what's the journalism field? How can they legitimize themselves in the face of all this imitation?
Yeah, so that is literally the definition of fake news, where you have manipulated something to make it appear different than what it was. Fake news isn't news that you don't like. We may report something in a way that that you don't like, but we haven't purposefully done it that way. We've done our research, we've done our editing, the story comes out, you might not like the perspective that it presents, but it is based in the facts. When something is manipulated in order to create a false narrative, that's fake news. And I think we have a heightened responsibility to identify it and call it out. And that's a new role for journalism, to call out other sources of information as being inaccurate, false, manipulated. You mentioned the manipulation that took place during the 2016 election. There was a lot of news sites that were created that the sites themselves represented a journalistic organization that didn't exist. So they were built in the names of communities, like the Milwaukee Journal. Well, there was no Milwaukee Journal, but it was created to give people the sense that this information was coming from a credible source. And so we have to be on the lookout for that and call it out when we see it and hear it. Back here.
I so appreciate you being here and talking about this. We could probably go on for hours for those of us that would like to talk about it. How much of this stems from journalism being taught coming out of college? And it looks like to me, or it seems to me, that the journalist today is really an editorialist. We've gotten away from the basics of reporting, the facts, and just deciding what I wanted you to hear. So how much of what we're dealing with today is because of the reporting? Yeah,
and part of that is the simplicity to publish. So anyone can publish. You can create a site that looks like a journalistic site, and you can publish anything on it. And organizations like ours, we have a code of ethics, a code of principles. We double source information. Every single thing that goes to print, everything that goes to the air is edited at least once. And so, I think, and my plea is that people will pay attention to who's behind the sources of journalism that they're consuming, and not support those that aren't editorially rigorous. Journalism schools have a challenge. When your sophomore comes to you and says, "Dad, I think I'm going to study journalism," and you know that there's 1,800 newspapers that folded in the last 10 years, you wonder if that's a good path. I feel that it is, because journalists are truth tellers and storytellers, and that skill can be used in so many different ways. And there is hiring going on. CPR added 40 journalists in the last 18 months. We've built the largest Colorado-owned news organization in the state, and we're going to continue to grow because not only do we feel we need to fill that leaking bucket, but we need to make it bigger. In the back here.
So I will say it's also frustrating, the decline of news, and I would say it in general. And for myself, when important events like the Kavanaugh hearings, when any of these hearings, the debates, all of that, I will watch it personally. And then what's intriguing to me is that when you flip through the channels, you can absolutely see the bias, which is a big part of why we as consumers of information, beyond just Facebook becoming this fire and forget place, you say that journalism, we're truth tellers, but there has been a decline in the trust of us as consumers that you really are telling the truth, namely because of the behavior of news organizations. What is your responsibility? I understand like Colorado Public Radio, and we can make choices, and I honestly didn't know there was a CPR, and I definitely want to listen to it. But what is your responsibility towards, and it's not just, I think that the balanced perspective, I think both sides need to be at the table, whether you like the other side or not. And I think the negativity, we can point the fingers at ourselves, and it needs to be pointed at everybody. So how do we change this, and what do you do versus sometimes it feels like it's all negative to one side and the other side's not owning their own responsibility in this.
Yeah. So that is mostly a phenomenon across national platforms. Most local news organizations are focused on the needs of their community. And so the one thing I would say is support your local news organizations. And I'm not talking about just Colorado Public Radio, but I'm talking about subscribe to the newspaper, support the online news sites that are in your community, because they really do have a commitment to the important news that's happening within the community. The national news sites, I feel, really play to the conflict of stories. That they focus on, in many cases, maintaining that conflict because that maintains the story. And conflict only has the purpose of seeking resolution. A conflict is at the center of opposing ideas, but if you don't get to a resolution, the conflict is worthless. And I just feel that so many platforms aren't focused on the solution and the resolution, but on maintaining the conflict. And we're going to do our best to rise above that. Yeah, we're at 90.1, and that's CPR news. 88.1 is classical music, so when you want that break. And 102.3 is our independent music station.
Kind of following up on the last question over there. I love CPR. That's my absolute go-to station. And I appreciate the NPR for the international perspective. When we get into both the national as well as international, and some of your answer kind of seem to be moving in this direction. I have family members who criticize my listening tastes for bias, and well, that's just liberal. And I'm just curious. One of the statistics that's I've heard from many sources, both on the college campuses as well as in journalism, 90 some odd % of the people who are reporting to us in the mainstream media, and I would include NPR in that group, are going to be coming from a liberal perspective. And I just hear some of the terms and all, and I go, I think that the people who are criticizing my listening are probably correct that this source does have a bias, and it is in this one direction. I'm just curious, how do you respond to that? How do you respond to that?
Yeah, so, the common denominator among listening for public radio across all demographics is education. And so a person who has a college degree is more likely to listen to public radio than not. And education cuts across, cuts across every metric. And so, our audience, by and large, is reflective of the educational attainment of any community. And so I feel the audience itself is quite representative, certainly in Colorado. In terms of the bias question, I'd say there's no bias to facts. There is some dispute about the facts themselves. Do you believe that that climate change is happening and that it has some man-made causes? There's science that says that it is, and we report that. It's not an agenda. We follow the facts, and we follow the facts as vigorously as we possibly can. I do think there is something to a concentration of news being delivered from communities beyond Colorado. So if most of the news is coming from Washington or New York or the coast, there's going to be a little different perspective to that. And we need to raise up the level of reporting that we're doing that's reflective of the experience here.
We've got time for one more question.
Okay.
So what I believe I heard you saying, is that the values that CPR espouses very closely align with the Rotary four-way test. How can we build a relationship? You have the media, we have the vehicle.
Yeah.
What alignment opportunities are there out there? And for one, I'm going to talk to you at the end of this event for
I'll
a
give you my
potential
card.
sponsorship opportunity for state of our city,
Yeah.
being a Centennial-based business.
Right.
But on a serious note, what alignment opportunities do you see out there for our two organizations?
Yeah.
She is our upcoming president, so I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, and you're doing a great job. I totally agree with your with you identifying the four-way test and how that, those are like core values that we absolutely share. One thing to keep in mind is our lens is statewide. And so we broadcast the State of the State address live, the only organization to do so, to make that available to everyone across Colorado. And so when we produce a news story, we produce the news story with the expectation that it's going to be relevant to anyone who hears it anywhere in Colorado. So we don't focus on Centennial, except to the fact when things are happening in Centennial that are models for the rest of the state. So that's just one thing to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, Stuart, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
We have another job for you, but first of all, I wanted to present to you. So we support a local library in an elementary school, Field Elementary, and we give them book plates. So every time a little kid is reading the book, we'll say your name in there.
Oh, wow.
It's our way of thanking you for coming and presenting to us today.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
And then we also have a drawing. We do have a legal raffle license, just so you know. Headline.
Yeah, this is not where our investigative
this is the PR,
reporting
right? We don't need any.
Resources are going to go. So are we reading the number?
The last three numbers.
Okay, 032 is the winner.
And West, great. So she gets some money for
It feels rigged.
lunch. And then she draws.
Was this the one I was supposed to pick?
Yeah. That's the one you got paid for, right? Thank you so much.
Samantha, while we do the drawing, just a reminder, there's a Rotary Foundation meeting this afternoon here at 5:30. If anybody's interested, it's open to the membership.
And I want to say one more thing. Those of you who listen to NPR, Ryan Warner was a Rotary Youth Exchange. Oh.
Is that a different texture? Where? Oh, yeah.
Oh. Good luck next time, man. Thank you for your participation. You could all stand for the four-way test for all we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Have a wonderful Tuesday.